Introduction to Architectural Rendering, a synthesis of left and right brain, originally presented by Ben Felix, architect, here narrated by John Montoya. A traditional architectural rendering might look something like this: loose, free form, showing atmosphere, showing the highlights of the architecture. Or it might look like this: a very tightly drafted elevation and showing a very creative interior style of rendering different aspects of the interior, including figures. Or, further, an architectural rendering might simply be a vignette, a small sketch using techniques of perspective and color or lack of color, sketching style using graphite, line strokes, hatch marks, and overall loose pencil work. We will concern ourselves in this class with two types of drawings. The first one is perspective, which is three-dimensional real space on the left, and right, orthographic, which is a technical-based drawing showing a flat front, which is able to show builders and evaluators the vertical heights and different ornamentation that will be used in a building. So it's both illustrative, but it's also technically proficient. Let's take, for example, what we see in reality. If you're going to visit Rome and you're going to see this Tempeto, you want to be able to capture it for all time in a drawing. You can make to the right an orthographic drawing of the plan, the elevation, and the section. A section is a cut through the building that shows the interior. The elevation is the exterior only view. You can also choose to make a perspective drawing, but be aware this is not orthographic. Some distortions occur by the use of perspective lines, and so it can't be relied on to create an accurate reproduction or to model, but it is very nice to look at and gives you an idea of atmosphering and a sense of space. You can generate a drawing. And how do you do that? Well, if you do have a floor plan to work with, you can make vertical lines that start from the key aspects of the floor plan and draw them upwards. And then you add the elevations. You will be able to master the technique of creating a plan that is turned into an elevation. Orthographic renderings sometimes appear three-dimensional, and they do that with the use of shade and shadow, color, and atmosphere. And here we can see a church front, which shows deep space through the blacking out of various windows. And for the Acropolis, we get a sense of the space and magnitude by showing temple heights, the largeness of the statues originally, and just a sense of space within the rock by watercolor techniques. One might think this is perspective drawing, but is not. It is expressing a flat front of a round building. The Colosseum here, because it is round, there is distortion at both ends, but there's a straight-on flat view only momentarily for one aspect of this 360-degree building. But this is, in fact, an orthographic drawing. An example of Ben Felix work is shown here. These are flat fronts drawn orthographically with watercolor and line drawn techniques. Very precise drawings, and at certain points you have just a small flare of different nature elements, and these could be just the exaggerated lines that contrast to the solid line work. Further examples of his work include different aspects of orthographic facades. A facade is a temple front, not just a temple, but any building front, very flatly drawn that highlights details and accents that will be placed onto the building. This comes from Beaux-Arts, types in France, traditional drawing houses of classical architecture. This is this kind of style. You can add some embellishments of the atmosphere to give it more context if you choose. And when you choose to add more context, you're saying, this is where this building will go and how it will look in space. A very masterful, done, and highly drafted, drawn building here. Other examples include front and side of this particular tabernacle. You can see that there's modularity. There's the good thing about this style of architectural sketching and rendering is that it does show the proportions, and it shows the proportions very well because you can apply a measurement to it. If you look down at the measuring guidelines that are provided, those help you to determine the scale of the building. A, these, this section can be very extravagant, and this might be a super uh, showing of all different things happening at once. Bombastic, as it were, it has the section cut, it has the interior elevation, all finely detailed, it has atmosphere. So it has details, structure, environment. A modern version of that could be the cutting apart of this temple to reveal the processional sketch stages that you might walk through the building, the highlights, the tabernacle area, the baptismal fonts, the meeting areas, the bell tower. Orthographic renderings are also what we might think of as floor plans or blueprints because they are very it's a view that's very flat. It's cut 4 feet theoretically above through the structures to reveal the highlights of the structural layout. From this plan, we can gain many different kinds of information where things will be laid out, where different processional areas happen. Highlighted onto this, you can make an interior elevation of just a portion. If you want to really show how colorful the stained glass work appears in this drawing, you can see that you can make an interior elevation orthographic and very simple to show you everything that is happening in this space. Orthographic detail with this column, and this is a new kind of drawing. This is an axonometric, though not labeled. This is not orthographic, but this is. The temple sort of facade of the column and the entablature is a key component of architectural illustration, and this is something that you should strive to do, whether you do it in this class or your Arc 1010. You will come away with a very nice example of one column of a particular style of architecture. Orthographic renderings can take place in large sizes. This is a town city plan, and then on the lower right is the elevation of what that plan will look like as you walk through it. Going back to our types of rendering, simple and atmospheric, vignettes, perspective on this one with different kinds of hatch marks, or perspective renderings combining both methods of the watercolor and the exterior perspective to give almost a postcard feel. Perspective renderings take place on the interiors too. They're very helpful to show what the inside of a building will look like. Likewise, you can do perspective renderings in a large blow-up scale of an entire plan. My favorite type of architectural rendering to think about are the small pencil sketches. Simple, humble, showing little areas of space and how they can relate. These are something you do when you do travel sketching, and this is my preferred method of drawing. The ink drawing, the classical column, and ink can go in, and any medium really can go in a very tightly controlled manner on the left and more of a loose feeling kind of direction. It's up to you on how you want to do that. You can combine your medium of watercolor, pen drawing, pencil drawing, ink work to create a fantastic and atmospheric building as seen here. Let's look behind the scenes. With math and sculpture, we use our left brain for formulaic, objective, scientific, rigid logic, and our right brain for subjective, organic, flexible, intuitive, creative, and free form. And with these two thoughts, we want to create the object of this class, taking highly technical, logical drawings and pairing them with our more abstract, creative, colorful other half side to meet in the middle. This is a Vici Pisces, a sacred form in sacred geometry, shown here to illustrate the concept of taking highly technical blueprints, masterful free-form drawing and painting to make it into a building style per se. And this is the Notre Dame Cathedral behind, combining both. From Marcus Vitruvius, we get the laws on how some of these things are done. There's utility, utilitas, commodity, function, and usefulness must be paired off with delight, beauty, and aesthetics, creating firmitas, firmness, strength, and structure. These are all the elements of architecture. You will learn them in your future architecture classes and how they relate. The Vitruvian triad of architectural renderings. Its beauty, architectural renderings strive for beauty. Its function, architectural renderings serve a purpose. Measurements, a sense of depth, durability, and timelessness. And the big secret is that anyone can do this. And I will show these. This is from 2 videos that Ben has created, and we'll show these on a separate so you can see them more in their moving function as you play. And here we see Ben drafting the facade, adding the lines, inching closely up with his paraline ruler, the tools of the trade, and then coming back through to give more definitive visible lines to the outside of the building, compressing many hours down to a fraction of time shown on this video. Then the next one is applying watercolor to this particular drawing, showing the depth, creating visual style. Hours condensed into seconds. And the idea is that learning techniques of drafting combined with your architectural rendering skills of freeform creates the beautiful in-between and the beauty of architectural rendering as you see here.